Silence, all ye faithful to the sword.
Radio Free Innsmouth, episode 36. And we are into the second third of Manilla Road's career. So you can hear they got a new drummer, Randy Thrasher Fox. And appropriately, since they hired a guy named Thrasher, they've also incorporated a substantial amount of thrash metal influence. This is the lead-off track from their 1985 album, Open the Gates. This one is called Metal Storm. So some people don't like this part of Manilla Road's career as much. They're like, oh god, they betrayed their epic heavy metal roots with all this thrash metal. I say, fuck you. This is the good shit. Check out those riffs. And the very acrobatic drumming from Mr. Randy Thrasher Fox, beefing up the attack of Mark Shelton on guitars and vocals and Scott Park on bass. Don't forget your comedic roots. After all, Mark Shelton told funny jokes on the first ever Manilla Road radio show in 1979.
You might remember this from a long time ago, about Easter time. Lots of tear gas. Lots of little kids crying. Mommy! Lots of cops. So here we go. This is called Herman Hill.
You fucking idiot! Piece of shit! Shit! When is this, Twilight? Damn it! Shit! Damn it! This is the reason we're in trouble in the first place. You understand what I'm saying?
Alright, that wasn't very funny. So, we're gonna stick to music this week, if that's okay with everybody out there. That's okay with me, Job! So, Open the Gates, we got Randy Thrasher Fox bringing some new life into the band with his frenetic drumming style, a little bit of thrash metal influence, but there's also an increased emphasis on dynamics, so shifting from slow to fast parts. There's a lot of layers going on. Even with the percussion itself, there's a lot of dynamic variation to it, as can best be heard in the song The Ninth Wave, which is my favorite track off the album. This was actually the song that got me into Manilla Road. Very epic. Talks about long ships and Vikings and King Arthur shit, all that good stuff. But you can hear Randy Thrasher Fox, and you have to say the whole name every time. He complements the epic riffs with some very semi-orchestral drumming. So lots of big cymbals and rolling fills that accentuate the slow and moody riffs. Of all people, Rob Darkin from Graveland lists Manilla Road as a major influence. You wouldn't think a black metal guy would be into that, but I think you can hear a lot of Graveland in songs like this. When I saw them live, they played this song. I don't know if it's because I mentioned it on the Facebook page for the concerts or if they just really wanted to play that song, but I'm glad they did. It's a very under-recognized song, and it's, like I said, it's a song that got me into them. It's probably in my top 5 Manilla Road songs, although that would be very hard to do. After Open the Gates opened the gates on this new era of Manilla Road, a year later we get The Deluge, which Mark Shelton has said he thinks that's probably the best Manilla Road album. Odin rest his soul. And that upped the epic factor, upped the thrash influences, and started adding in some of those old, weird prog rock things they were doing earlier on, but in a more metal context. For instance, the percussive Ostheim riffage of Hammer of the Witches. I didn't even mean to make that rhyme. That was amazing. The percussive off-time riffage of Hammer of the Witches. So this is a really weird riff. It's another one of those ones that sounds like it's falling down the stairs, but they combine it with melodic vocals in a very interesting way. You can also hear him doing weird stuff with his voice. It's in between shouting, narration, and straight up crooning. And now that we're out of the percussive riff, we get into some more thrash riffs. I bet you he's gonna get really mad when he says it again this time, watch. Oh man, I called that so hard. So yeah, the deluge. This is another episode where I'm gonna be rushing through shit really quick, because if I was to point out everything cool that happens on a Manilla Road album, we'd be here for multiple hours. So, the album after that is called Mystification, and probably currently sits as my favorite Manilla Road album, but that list gets jumbled around pretty often. So here's one of the better songs off of it. It's called Spirits of the Dead. It features an amazing build-up from a very plaintive, clean guitar meditation on death into some absolutely ghastly and barbaric thrash metal.
Their voice is like a whisper, appearance brief and fair, visions of holy.
I can't get over how good his voice is. I know it's not for some people, but one of my favorite vocalists in metal. And now we are exiting the graveyard and going into the underworld. Check out that scale run at the end of the riff. You think it's just a little flourish, but watch. Nope, that's part of the riff proper. He's going to do that every time. Also note the usage of bar chords inside a thrash metal riff. Very unorthodox. And now we bring back the melody from the intro, but it takes on a new macabre cast. I think I ended the one of the episodes of RFI with another song from this album, Children of the Night. That's also a good one, but the whole album's basically perfect. Go out and get it. Up next, a year later, they're cranking these bitches out. We have Out of the Abyss, which is their thrashiest and most evil album. It's got a 7-minute long song about Jack the Ripper on it in time for his 100-year anniversary. And it also has a lot of Lovecraftian themes in general, but it's not all just brutality and evil. They also do a lot of really weird stuff, like on the song Return of the Old Ones. They do this kind of odd bluesy thing. It's hard to describe in the way it hooks up with some very unorthodox drumming. You just have to hear it for yourself. See what I mean? You get this weird drum roll, blues guitar, and spooky black metal bar chord combo with some soft and plaintive vocals. The dynamics here are also very notable. We switch to a bit more heaviness. That same bar chord riff that played with distortion and whammy bar. And the vocals have similarly gotten more heavy and hoarse. There's another case where he incorporated a very complex scale run into the riff itself instead of just playing it as a one-off. And finally, we enter the 90s with The Courts of Chaos, one of the most complex Manilla Road albums. It it's not quite as evil or heavy as the album that preceded it. Instead, it's more intricately arranged and atmospheric. It's the first time they used a substantial amount of keyboards as well. My favorite song off this one is the title track, The Chords of Chaos, but they're all great. But on this one, you can see him using some very Wagner-style leitmotif development. Take a shot, because I mention that at least once every episode for every band I like. I like my Wagner, I like my metal. I'm sorry. But it opens up with some spooky bar chords that later turn into atmospheric bar chords and establish a bit of a motif that is later expounded upon in variations within the song. See, spooky organ right off the bat, man. So once this vocal line is finished, we're going to get to that motif I was talking about. Remember this part when I play the later sections of the song, because this will be mutated multiple times over the course of the track. And in fact, every riff after this is sort of in counterpoint to this little melodic figure. You can also notice the keyboards there were forcing their own melodic line that's kind of soaring over it in an interesting manner. So later on in the song, we get to this. So there's a counterpoint to that little ditty they were playing earlier. And a different vocal style. It's kind of like the Tom Araya fast thrash metal spitting, but done in a melodic way. Very interesting. And now we're into some more heaviness. And they're going to start stacking thrash metal riffs from there until we get a recapitulation and variant of that motif I was talking about. So that is the variation. It's that same sort of like single string picking out of bar chords, but then he's beefing it up by slamming on chords at the end of each phrase. So for most bands, this would be the chorus, but I don't know if you can properly call it a chorus if it only happens once. Instead, this song has more of a fugal, Baroque structure. You can see him mixing in that motif again. Really cool guitar playing. If you don't play guitar, you're just going to take my word for it that it was really cool, but hopefully you can tell by ear that that was pretty fucking sick, dude. So yeah, that was part 2 of our R.I.P. Mark Shelton Manilla Road retrospective trilogy. Unfortunately, after the Courts of Chaos, they broke up. Don't worry, little guy. So what had happened was Manilla Road was essentially put on hold. Mark Shelton did a solo album called Circus Maximus that was pretty cool in 1994, but the record label made him release it as Manilla Road, even though it didn't really sound like Manilla Road. Still a good album, and he kind of lost taste for the music industry for a couple years after that. But don't you worry, Manilla Road proper storms back in 2001 with the album Atlantis Rising, which will be the departure point for our next journey.
Computations of video, the tuning forks are set.